Hello everybody, Reggie Time back again with another hand that I played in a recent session. This one was played later in the evening on the 888 30 Snap network, and it was against a player that I didn't know a huge amount about, but I suspected he was aggressive. I was doing a live sweat with a student who's who'd been working with quite a lot on Snap. He's playing the 30 Snap games too, and we were just like basically just taking it in turn to sweat each other and having some fun. And this hand came up, and to be fair, I didn't know much about him. It was the player that was sweating me that told me that he thought this guy was aggressive. So what do you think of the line that I decided to take? Our opponent makes a small raise pre-flop, which is pretty standard in these games. Lots of players are making these silly, like, it's if you click half pot in the 888 network at the minute, this is a site it's giving people to open with. I don't personally like it. I think it's too small, but whatever, it is what it is. And I elected to call. Now, we could 3-bet pre-flop very easily here. Again, somebody who thinks aggressive, somebody who's got a wide range. There's nothing wrong with 3-betting, and if this player in the big blind was a more aggressive regular, I absolutely would have 3-bet rather than just call. But my read on this player is he's pretty tight and definitely doesn't get out of line. So if it was to squeeze pre-flop, I'd have no issue folding my Jack-10. I'm not remotely concerned about getting bluffed here or bluff squeezed or however you want to call it, and I don't mind if he comes along because we've got a pretty playable hand. We've got a hand that plays one multi-way, albeit we're out of position, so it's not quite as nice. So we do call and we flop just about as well as we could. So I start by checking, obviously, and because my read is this guy's aggressive, I'm planning on check raising, and when I see him bet a relatively small amount, I think this raise is going to work a lot of the time. Usually when people make these like weakish C bets on these connected boards, for me it's not typically a sign of strength. If someone does turn up with a strong hand here, I would note it, because this is something that I will frequently try to attack when I see people making relative just over 50% C bets. I don't often think people have got really strong hands when they do this. Most players in this pool haven't. Most players in this pool do have some quite alarming sizing tells and sizing discrepancies in the sizes they choose to use with their value range, the bluffing range, etc. So this is the size I would typically get after. And with the read that I was given that this guy was aggressive, I thought it was definitely a good spot to go for a check raise. So we do check raise, and we're lucky enough to hit the turn. Now this is a spot where I think it gets quite interesting, because we're still like 100 blinds deep here. And I mean, obviously it's really, really standard here just to make a bet, I don't know, $6, $7. Hope he calls with, like, I don't know, some kind of queen with a heart or something like that. Or maybe he's been lucky enough to flop a set or something and now unlucky enough to get outdrawn. But I also think it might be an interesting spot to go for a double check raise. I really like the double check raise as a line, because people just don't see it coming very often. Quite often when people see the check raise and then they see the check on the turn, they just think people have given up. So they will make a bet with weak made hands trying to protect against like random hearts and things. They'll just sometimes they'll have called with something and now decide to try and bluff with it, thinking that the heart's a scare card to us. And there's lots of ways that aggressive players can bluff this turn. So I considered going for the double check raise. So I had two options as far as I was concerned. We had the lead out, or we had the double check raise. And given that we're a little bit deeper, I slightly favoured the double check raise. Well, I'm not going to say what I did just yet, because I think this is an interesting spot to just ask people what they would do here. I mean, obviously leading out is incredibly standard, and that's what I'm expecting most people to come back with and say, yeah, we just lead out here. There's no need to get fancy. Going for a double check raise is fancy play, and all those things. If we check, we miss value. Lots and lots of things like that, which I completely get on board with. It's impossible to argue against a lot of them, but at the same time, I also think it's a situation which we can sometimes try and get creative in. and just do things that aren't expected of us. I like to try and do unexpected things when I'm playing. I like to think, how do most regulars think, and then think of creative ways, fancy play syndrome ways, however you want to describe them. I like to think of ways that I can manipulate regulars to do things, or bad aggressive players to do the things I want them to do. So I wouldn't totally rule out double check raising. It's not something I would do very often as a rule, but I think it's a spot where we could possibly consider going for it, given how deep stacks are still. So there we go. I'm going to guess most of you guys are just going to say we need to bet here, we need to like just charge single heart draws, we need to get value from Queen X, etc, etc. But open your mind to the possibility of doing something else. I mean, if we're going to bet here, what are you going to bet? Are you going to bet really small? Are you going to absolutely bomb it? Would you consider overbetting so we could just like get stacks in really easily on the river? If we were to bet 10 here and he called, that will put 29 into 23. If we only bet say 6 and he calls, that's going to put 25 into 26. So in sizing is an important issue. If we are going to lead out, what size are you going to make it so you can like get stacks in on the river? And do you think at these stack depths we can like justifiably stack off here? Is someone just going to stack off with something that doesn't beat a flush, given that there's only 9 in the pot and there's still 33 behind to play for? So I think it's quite an interesting turn spot, and I'd be interested to see if anyone is interested in some different lines other than just lead out like 2/3 pot or something like that, just because it's going to be made our flush. So yeah, would you bet here? If so, how much would you bet? Would you ever consider going for a double check raise? There we go. Hope you enjoyed the hand. Hope it's given you something to think about, and I look forward to seeing some feedback. Bye for now.